Hello, everyone. I want to talk about the French election that just happened. It was the first round. It's a two-round election. It was suggested to me by $5 Patreon backer Perry Ramstead. Perry, thank you so much for sending me this. What just happened on Sunday, April 23rd, was very significant in terms of global politics. Specifically, what went down in France was a presidential race that was, it came down to three or four people. And there was this gentleman who was referred to as kind of a left-leaning Bernie type populist candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon. And there was an article in The Guardian about why he should be president, and the corporate media was coming, of course, after him because he's too lefty, he's going to be bad for business. So what happened, which was interesting, was the people that did end up winning were two candidates. I'll read their names there. Independent presidential candidate Emmanuel Macron and far-right hopeful Marine Le Pen. Now they're calling her the French Trump. She's a very, because of the terrorist attacks they've had, she's been very much like, we got to get the refugees out of here and close our borders. And their economy's had a tough time. And there's two main parties in the conservative and the socialist party. The current president is a socialist. He didn't even run for re-election. That's why this big, giant, runoff election thing happened. So the fact that these two, an independent and then someone from the far right, one is significant because it rejected the two-party system, showing it can happen. It also showed that a real left, Bernie-like progressive, big business got scared because Emmanuel Macron, I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry. He's a former investment banker. So it's interesting that he's an independent, but he does come from investment banking. So I don't know. That might have been why the corporate media decided to get behind him over Jean-Luc Mélenchon. So I'm sure French people are screaming at how badly I'm butchering their names. I apologize. I won't be offended if you mispronounce my name. Graham, Elwood. So I'm going to read a couple of statistics from a CNBC article that is titled "A Blow to Establishment, Global Media Reacts to French Election Results." And so what's going to happen now, these two, so that was now the top two, they did a top two thing, and they're now running against each other on May 7th. We could do this in America. We could, and what's significant here is an independent and a far left person, neither of which were from an established party, got real traction in the media, and they got to actually run. As I've said before, imagine if this last election, if on the big TV debates, we had Trump, Hillary, Gary Johnson, and Jill Stein debating each other in front of 50 million people. Imagine what kind of an election we would have had. Might be a little different. We don't know. But that's the problem in America. The two parties control the debates. And they have that bullshit, you have to have only so much, you have to have this percentage of in a poll. Like, the two parties control the debate. That's nonsense. That rule needs to change. And we need to say the top four candidates get to vote, get to be in a national election. We get to have a real serious debate instead of listening to Hillary and Trump just go through their corporate rich person bullshit. And the thing that Perry Ramstead, why he suggested this article, as I said, he's a $5 Patreon backer, was he wanted to show the battle between the 99% and the 1% is what's happening. Again, and this is playing out all over the world. And there's also the Marine Le Pen, the far right, the French Trump lady. That's significant because there's a global movement of nationalism, and it's getting a little scary. Everyone's like really trying to lock down their borders and nationalists and get the foreigners out. And it's happening not just here in America. So I'll read the statistic here. Having amassed 23.9% and 21.4% of the votes, respectively, Macron and Le Pen's gains came at the loss of the traditional conservative and socialist parties, who crashed out of the first round for the first time since the founding of the Fifth Republic in 1958. That's significant. Macron and Le Pen will now face a tete-a-tete in the second round runoff on May 7th. This is, and this article, and I'll put the link below for the CNBC article, and I'll put the link to the Guardian article about the Bernie guy, Mélenchon, just so you kind of get more, understand who he is. Now, he got about 19-something% of the vote, and he and many of his supporters view that as that's significant because look how he got close. He got really close. And I think it's significant because whether I don't like Trump. Obviously, I've done numerous videos on how bad he is and how dangerous he is. But I've said before, I totally understand how he resonated with that segment of the American population that was like, yeah, because he in his campaign was not, he was in the Republican debates going to Jeb Bush, your dad started the Iraq War. Look, that was awful for us. I mean, he was calling out the Bush family for the Iraq War. Now, Trump has obviously been very pro-war since he's gotten to office. But my point is the Trump victory in a lot of ways was a big rejection of the establishment politics. Now, he is, as I've talked about, his cabinet is all corporatists and it's all military and it's all big oil, but that's how he won, and you have to look at that and look what he did, and then also the failings of Hillary. She had no message, she doesn't know how, she's just a rich person that doesn't know how to connect to the average person. Trump figured out how to do that, and so this is significant here because they go through all the different newspapers. The Le Humanité newspaper is a left-leaning French daily, opted for a photo of Le Pen obscuring her own campaign poster with the headline, never. They don't like her. But it also showed that Jean-Luc Mélenchon got 19.5%, and they said that that's a hope for the future. So the significance of this is it's important to follow for several reasons here, because even though the far left guy didn't win, he got a lot of votes. It's a lot of stuff we should follow in this country. First of all, we should be pushing for serious election reform to open up. And the organization that I firmly believe in is openprimaries.org. And in California, we do a top two runoff system, and people say, oh, it's bad because you've got these districts where two Democrats ended up running against each other in the general. Well, yeah, here's why that's significant, because when in an all Democratic district, before the top two system, the Democrats, whoever won the Democratic primary, won the election. Because the Republicans knew, oh, this is a Democratic district, we're never going to win, so they just put some paperweight candidate that's not going to do anything, and the Democrat had it, and they didn't have to appeal to the Democrats the Democratic candidate didn't have to appeal to any of the Republicans, even though it's a handful in their district. With the top two, in one of the districts, you had like an old line Democrat going against a real young progressive, and both Democratic candidates had to campaign to everyone in the district, the Republicans and everybody. They didn't just have to phone it in because they won the primary. So I think openprimaries.org is significant. But I also think paying attention to what happens on this too, May 7th, and I'll cover this again after that election and we'll see what happens, is to show that we could have that here in America. We could have 4 or 5 or 6 candidates getting 15, 20% of the vote each, and we have to have a runoff election. I don't know why we have to have it on one day. It's on a Tuesday when everyone's working and it's done. They had the election, the voting was on a Sunday. We could do that, We could have it on a Saturday. We could have it all weekend, a Saturday and a Sunday, and have vote by mail. So petition all of these little things. Petition your state for vote by mail. petition for runoff elections, petition for open primaries. Go to openprimaries.org, and we have a chance. But it's also, scary because a far-right person can get in there, like what is happening in America right now and what potentially could happen to France May 7th. But it's significant, and it shows we can have this in Canada. Friends of mine were like, I was in Canada, and they had the national debate, had like 4 or 5 candidates up there. Petition the two parties to open up the national debates for the next presidential election. So Perry Ramstead, thank you so much for sending me this video. Folks, if any one of you want to have articles like this suggested to me, if you go to the Patreon link below, and at the $5 level, you get to pick an article a month for me to talk about, or a topic. Perry sent me several links, and I'll put them all below to cover the whole article. So I appreciate your guys' interest in the show. You guys, people like Perry Ramstead and all you other Patreon supporters and anyone else there watching, you get to affect how this show is done. You get to affect what I'm going to talk about and what we all can talk about. I love the comments in the comment section. Most of you guys are really having interesting debates. I really don't like that. I don't want to see a lot of, hey, fuck you, suck it. Every once in a while we get some trolls in there, but debate and be respectful with each other in the comment section, which most of you are doing, and I really appreciate that. And I'm digging how we're building this community. I started with 160 subscribers on January 2nd, and now we've got over 3,000. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share.